Here, and I will disable the floating control. All right, so here we go. So it was actually a very interesting study for me. So I have come to the conclusion that I absolutely love viruses. Now you guys are going to be like, what on earth is that? What do you mean you love viruses? Well, this is just something that I've always, for years and years, I've always been interested in microbiology. And so, you know, I just started this. I was taking, it was a little, it was an informal course that I was just taking online. And this man that teaches this class, he's actually been involved in, you know, the vaccines, and, you know, he's got his name in many different, you know, areas of, you know, in the globe of virology. And so this man is actually, he thinks a lot like I do. Of course, I don't know half of, not even a sliver of what this man knows, but the idea of the fact that these microbiology and the study of things that you can't see, it has a really important place in biology. And so in particular, with anatomy and physiology, that's kind of where I focused it. But this is, I mean, this is just, it's a huge, huge topic. So for me, putting together this slideshow was definitely, it was an exercise in constraint, because I wanted to talk about things and it was like, no, that's just you're going too general, you're going too broad, you're going too deep. There's all of these things that I had to kind of constrain myself. So, but it was a very interesting, study. So I had first, you know, gone through, you know, these courses and was taking a lot of my own notes. And then I wanted to incorporate those into this slideshow, but I decided against it. So I wanted to just kind of confine the viruses as it relates to essential oils. And but I did want to talk first about viruses, okay? What they are, what they look like. There's such a wide range of viruses. There are many of them. And so we want to just kind of talk just a little bit about viruses just for a moment. So why would this even be a subject that we would even care to talk about? Okay, well, so here's just a little bit of statistics about viruses. They literally outnumber cellular life. Now, keep in mind, viruses are not a cell. They're not single-celled. They are not a cell. They are a pathological agent. Okay, they're a particle. They don't hold the same mechanisms as a cell does. They can't reproduce on their own. There are many things that they, or most, or all, not all, but many things that they are dependent upon a host. And that host is a cell, whether it's a human cell, whether it's a plant cell. Okay, and so we're going to talk just very briefly about some of that, but just to understand that viruses outnumber cellular life by at least 10 to 1. So they have got the greatest biodiversity on Earth, okay? Viruses drive global geothermal cycles. Okay, so what does that mean that they drive things? Well, we're going to talk just a little bit about that, because they can do very beneficial things, and they do very, very beneficial things, to the point to where if we did not have the amount of viruses in the world today, life could not exist. Okay, so they drive processes that are critical for whether it's human life, whether it's plant life. The processes that they drive are critical for us to even be able to remain alive on this earth. All right, so they shape host populations. many viruses are likely beneficial. And we're going to talk about that just very, very briefly, because I mostly want to talk about those viruses that are not beneficial. Okay, because that's where it comes, that's where the essential oils come into it, right? And what these essential oils can do are already being done in the plant or the flower or the tree or the bark or the root that we derive them from. So it's very, very important that we understand that they're working in these other forms of life. Okay, I mean, we all understand that, you know, trees and plants and all of that, they are living, they're just a different form of life than they have cells, but their cells are a little different than ours. They have a cell wall, they're rigid, whereas we have cell membranes. Okay, so it's different, but still cells nonetheless. And that's viruses go in to go ahead and perform their, well, shall we say, their dirty work. Okay, they need to infect or to invade or to infiltrate, however you want to say it. They need to get into that cell. That is their goal, is to get into a cell, whether it's plant or human. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. All right, I wanted to just kind of share a few pictures because to me, this is just, I think this is just unbelievable how that they, through the use of many different microscopic techniques, whether it's electron microscope or otherwise, they have actually been able to see these viruses. Now, remember, these high-powered microscopes, I shouldn't say, did I say telescope? Microscopes. These microscopes literally have not been around for very long. So like in my grandparents' years was when these microscopes were invented so that we could see particles that are this small. Okay, so these particles are way smaller than we could ever see with our human eye. Okay, so here's a SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, now as you can, this is the COVID, right? So there's SARS-CoV, there's SARS-CoV-2. And so all this just means is that this is a corona type virus. There are many corona type viruses. SARS, sudden acute respiratory syndrome, that's one of them. That's what the process that happens inside of our body. So that's what the SARS stands for. And then CoV, CO, stands for corona. Now, if you were to look at these under, and I don't have a picture, I actually took away the one picture that I did have where you can actually see a corona. I actually might still have that later on in the slideshow. But anyway, they name these viruses not only for what they do in the human body, but then how they appear, what they look like. So here's an H1N1 virus, caused many deaths. Okay. Now, these are bacteriophage, attacking bacteria. So bacteriophage is not a bacteria, it's a bacteriophage. It's a type of a virus that attacks bacteria. Okay, so these phages, they don't bother us, they attack bacteria. In many ways, these are actually good. In many ways, they're actually good. Okay, so because they restrict the bacterial overgrowth within us, many bacteria that we have in our bodies actually can kill us. And so bacteriophage actually can be beneficial. And there are so many things that they're doing with these bacteriophages. But I'm not going to talk about all of that. So I just want to make the point is that they're not all bad. Okay, not all viruses are bad. Some of them do some very, very important work, not only within our bodies, but also just in the world at large. Okay, so my daughter is telling me she doesn't have the link to get onto the class. Come on, Michelle. It's the same link as always. Let me just send her that link really quick. I'm gonna have to tease her when she gets on. Okay, here she comes. Okay. All right. So here we are back. Sorry. I hope my daughter got in okay. But anyway, like I say, so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about virus. All right. Just the wonderful world of viruses. Okay. Now, I mean, we think about viruses, we think about flu, we think about the COVID-19, right? This is what we think of when we think about viruses. But this viral world, like I was saying from the very first slide that I had, is 10 to 1 for any other life that exists. Okay, and I think there was actually something from the class that I was taking, that it was saying how that if you just took a little sample of ocean water, just in that ocean water alone, there are more viruses than there are living organisms in the world. In other words, there are so many viruses, especially in the oceans. I just think that is just the most incredible thing. Now, viruses, as we were just looking at those slides, they come in all shapes and all sizes. Some of them have a hard capsid, some of them are softer, okay? And there's a myriad of ways also that they actually infect and bring their infectious material inside of a cell. Okay, some of them infect from the outside, some of them must get on the inside, some of them, there's just a myriad of ways. So we're not going to go through all of those different ways, but understand what a virus is. It's a small infectious agent that replicates only inside the living cells of other organisms, whether it be plant or whether it be animal or humans. Viruses can affect all types of life forms, from animals and plants to microbes. What's a microbe? It's just a microscopic organism, right? Which would be bacteria. Some bacteria are microbes. Some of them are single-celled, some of them are multi-celled. Archaea, there's archaebacteria. There's all kinds of life forms that can and do become infected with viruses. Now, virus particles are known as virions, and they consist of the genetic material or the capsid. It can also cause severe infections and dreadful diseases, and we're going to talk about some of those dreadful diseases, okay? Viruses, they can be pathogens. In other words, they can be the cause of a pathogen or a pathos, a disease causing, right? So they can cause HIV, they can cause just the common flu, which there are multitudes of flus, or COVID-19, coronavirus being one of them. There's herpes, there's chickenpox. The viruses are also linked to cancer, right? Mononucleosis, herpes, hepatitis. They've been used in germ warfare. Now, there's a really interesting little piece of information for those of you who are either in Atlanta or outside of the Atlanta, Georgia area. We are the only place in the United States that still has smallpox virus being stored, okay? Now, the reason that it's being stored, and I'm sorry, the only place in America, there's one other place, and that's in Russia, okay? So 2 countries have smallpox virus, and they're storing it for a reason. 2 reasons, actually. One is if there was an accidental outbreak of smallpox, that they would have the smallpox, that they can literally make vaccines very rapidly. Also, we're keeping it for maybe some actor, such as Russia, who might decide to use the smallpox for just what you're reading here, germ warfare. That's a really big deal. It's not something that, you know, is just like a sci-fi type of a thing. That's real stuff. germ warfare. So here in Atlanta, we have a store of smallpox virus, as well as in Russia. Now that's a very scary thing, because if anybody knows anything about smallpox, it is very, very infectious and it kills a lot of people. And those of us who are a little bit older, we have a scar on our shoulder or on our arm from our smallpox vaccine. We all got it when we were younger. But to understand that more viruses are actually useful than are harmful, okay? So they're needed to produce insulin. They're needed to produce vaccines, which vaccines are oftentimes to kill the virus, right? But anyway, that viruses are useful. All right, so we're gonna talk about the body. Okay, so the body has barriers. Okay, we have natural barriers, and the first barrier really is what you see when you look at somebody. You're looking at skin. Okay, skin is the largest organ on the human body, right? So it's an actual organ, and it's very formidable because what's on the outside is all dead. Okay, it's stratified cells. Okay, they lay one on top of the other. Okay, and they're dead. They're keratinized. They're dead, and they act to prevent anything. An infection, whether it be bacterial or viral, cannot do anything to dead cells. It must be a living cell that has all of those processes and those mechanisms going on that it can actually use for its host. In viruses anyway, bacteria they don't need to do that. They have all their own organelles and they've got their own cells. They don't need our cells, but a virus does. Why? A virus is not even living, right? So it only, and there's actually there's a lot of, if you ask two people, are viruses alive? One person or one scientist might say yes, and another scientist might say no. Well, once they infect a cell, then yes, now they have all of the classification of a living organism, right? But prior to infecting that cell, they are not. Then there's no way you can consider them alive. Okay, so there's kind of a very gray area there. But the true sense of the word virus, that is a non-living particle, okay, or an infectious agent, okay? So viruses gain entry into the host cells by first binding to specific receptors. That is the key. That's the key to how essential oils can work, okay? And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. First, I just want to show you some awesome pictures of just, I mean, look at this beautiful picture of an influenza virus. Okay, now note all of the projections coming off of this particle. Okay, now many of those projections are actual receptors. Okay, so I want you to remember that word because that is the key. And think of it, I'm not just saying key just to use a good word. When you think of a key, one key can open up one lock, right? If I took my house key and I went to Athens to Patricia's house, my house key is not going to open up Patricia's door, right? With receptors, it's like a key. There's one key to one type of a cell. Cells have many receptors on them. Viruses have different receptors on them. All right. So I just kind of wanted to show a few really, really interesting pictures of just some viruses under these high-powered microscopes. So this is called a Marburg virus, Ebola virus. We've all heard of Ebola. Usually affects the gastrointestinal tract. The rabies virus is a very deadly virus. This is a horrible virus. The HIV virus, again, is horrible, Horrible, horrible. There have been more fatalities from HIV, and I think I might have the statistics on another slide of the HIV. Then there's the dengue virus. It comes from, you know, being bitten by an infected mosquito. There's the Zika virus, the same type of a thing. I think this one might originate in Brazil. I know that, you know, in the United States, there was kind of a big scare for pregnant women with the Zika. I remember one of my daughters was having babies at that time, and you know, we were just a little, you know, worried about it, just because you hear about things and it's like, yeah, you know, I mean, down south there's a lot of mosquitoes, right? And there's the polio virus that we've all but eradicated from the United States thanks to vaccinations. The MERS-CoV. Okay, now we're getting a little closer to the SARS-CoV, right? Here's the SARS-CoV, and I did keep this slide. So the CO just means corona, which was named due to the corona appearance. If you look at these under the microscope, these, you know, are unstained in the same way that those, or differently than those other slides were stained. These slides are stained for just for the effect. So here's a SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, so the one was just the CoV, and this is the CoV-2. All right, so we're going to talk about immune response, but not really. We're mostly going to talk about the way that essential oils can actually help, because what happens with a virus, with the SARS-CoV-2 virus in particular, what they do is they create a chaotic environment, intracellular, which then becomes extracellular within the body, that creates a dramatic amount of inflammation. It attacks the lungs primarily, and it creates so much inflammation. Pneumonia is often a result, and that's where we have all of that huge, you know, cascade of reactions. So just understand one thing is that it creates chaos in the immune system. And that's why this is such a damaging virus, is because of the chaos that it creates in our immune system. Our immune system is absolutely wonderful, and it's meant to respond, and to respond very quickly to pathogens. But what happens is there's what's called a cytokine storm, and it's like overkill. Right? It's kind of like, let's say you're driving down the road, and let's say an animal comes running out from the woods, and you swerve your car to avoid the animal, but you overcompensate, and then you swerve, and now you're going into oncoming traffic, right? So you avoided the whatever it was, the rabbit or the raccoon that was coming out of the woods, but now you're involved in a head-on collision, right? Because you overcorrected. That is maybe just maybe my best way that I could explain this chaotic outcome with our immune system when it comes to SARS-CoV-2 and the cytokine storm. So with viruses, the problem is that antibiotics do not work. With bacteria, you can take an antibiotic and it will usually help. 9 times out of 10, your symptoms will reduce very quickly, but with viruses, that is not so. Most of the time, your body has to ride it out, and then that viral load has to just decrease, and that usually does happen in time. Problem is that with the inflammation that this creates, it's our own immune system is what's now causing all of these problems within our body, because they're responding to this virus, but then they're creating a problem within our body. Now that's something that I just learned, and I thought that was very interesting, you know, to maybe share with others. But just to understand that it is a fight between our cell and the virus. That's where that fight happens, okay? As long as that virus stays outside of our cell, we do not get infected. And viruses don't know where they're going. They don't have thinking capabilities like, oh, this is the cell I want to know. What they do is they come in through the respiratory airways, through our nose, through our mouth. They sometimes enter through skin, usually broken skin, get in through the GI tract. So there's different mechanisms, usually a mucosal type of a pathway that they'll enter in to our bodies. And that's now where they're haphazardly just, they're just trying to find something, anything that they can get into, that they can go and replicate and do their dirty work. And our cells have many, many defenses, okay? But just to understand that our bodies are under attack 24/7, every hour of every day of every year, our bodies are under attack. Most of the time, actually, we are able to thwart those attacks because our immune systems are unbelievable. Just to have a good understanding of our immune system and the work that it does, that is something that we just don't even consider, that at any given time, there is an infectious agent in our bodies that our bodies are fighting off, and we usually don't even notice it. It's not until we start getting the fever, we start getting the pain, we start getting whether it be the respiratory, symptoms. That's usually what we feel. And so when that happens, now we know, okay, yeah, there's something going on in my body. Then people are usually like, oh, I'm not sure. I feel like I might be getting sick. Well, a lot of times, even when you feel those particular things, it goes away fairly quickly. But then there are some times, such as with some of these viruses that we're talking about today, whether it's rabies, whether it's SARS-CoV-2, whether it's HIV, these types of infections, they don't go away very easily. Some of them never go away. HIV is one of them. If you know anything about the HIV virus, once you have been diagnosed with HIV, you never lose that diagnosis. You have that for life. Once you become symptomatic, now you are considered AIDS positive. Okay, so HIV is the virus in your body. Once symptoms start from the HIV, and it could be years, you could have HIV for years before it actually turns into AIDS. Very, very interesting, to be honest with you. Okay, now, this is a picture that happened. What this picture is showing is what happens in our bodies all the time. We have these things called dendritic cells, which is one of the first cells that would actually enter onto the scene to go ahead and take a virus out. Okay, so there's whether it's in our blood or whether it's in our tissues, and dendritic cells usually work in the tissue before it actually reaches the blood. So what dendritic cells do is they squeeze through all of these little passageways when there's all of these receptors on so many cells that are saying, hey, something's wrong, we need some help here, right? Dendritic cell to the rescue, right? This is usually the first line of defense. So what it does is it will usually engulf that virus, take care of that virus, but then on those little dendrites, what it will do is it'll present an antigen of the virus. And now the dendrite now will go into our lymphatic system and go into a lymph node, and it will have these little discussions with T cells, and it'll say, here, this is what I found. What do we need to do about this? And the T cells will say one of two things, either, there's no big deal, harmless, let's not worry. Or the T cells will be like, oh my goodness, alert, alert. And then they'll all come rushing in. That is a cytokine, not only a cytokine is actually happening prior to that, but now inflammation happens, okay? So now we've got all of our forces rushing into this area to try to contain this viral infection, not infection, it's not infection yet, to try to contain this intrusion before it becomes an infection. Essential oils to the rescue, okay? That's the beautiful part about essential oils, is how that they can kill both viruses as well as bacteria. Now, I know I've said it many times before, antibiotics cannot penetrate the cell membrane. Essential oils can penetrate the cell to kill viruses and bacteria. So essential oils, essential oils work in a number of different ways. And we're going to primarily talk about just one way that they work. I did get some of my information from the PubMed.gov website. All right, now, since the Middle Ages, essential oils have been widely used for bactericidal, virucidal, fungicidal, and antiparasitical, insecticidal, medicinal, and cosmetic applications, especially nowadays in pharmaceutical, sanitary, cosmetic, agricultural, and food industries. And the development of resistance to different antimicrobial agents by bacteria, fungi, viruses, parasites, etc., is a great challenge to the medical field for the treatment of infections caused by them. And therefore, there's a pressing need to search for new and novel antimicrobials. The antimicrobial activity of essential oils and the biogenetic nanoparticles is well known. Recent studies have demonstrated that nanoparticles functionalized with essential oils have significant antimicrobial potential against multi-drug resistant pathogens. Now, I know that that was a mouthful, but just understand that essential oils have these capabilities to kill viruses, bacteria, fungi, these different microbial agents. Now, viral infections oftentimes target certain places in our body. And I know I briefly did talk about that, but we have viral eye infections, parotitis, that's in our saliva glands. We have pneumonia in our lungs, myelitis, pancreatitis, gastroenteritis. There's sexually transmitted diseases that are viral, skin infections that are viral, hepatitis, cardiovascular. There are so many viral infections, meningitis, encephalitis. The common cold is viral. Okay, so there are so many ways that viruses cause the human body major problems. Okay, but On Guard is one of the ways that we can actually protect ourselves. Oops, I'm sorry. So essential oils and their active constituents, they reduce the lethal symptoms. They lower the inflammatory response, which is what we were talking about, the inflammation. They inhibit the viral replication. And how can they do that? Well, if you keep a virus out of the cell, they can replicate. That's the only place that they go to replicate. They can easily penetrate virus membranes and they can cause membrane disruption. So that would be the lyse process where you would completely just destroy a virus. They inhibit viral attachment, and that's what we're going to really focus on, okay? Because that's where those receptors again come in. Receptors are what causes a virus to attach to its target cell. So research indicates that essential oils can inactivate a virus in a couple of ways. They can inhibit their ability to replicate or keep the virus from fusing to cell walls. That's again that receptor that we're talking about. Either way, using essential oils to fight viruses is effective. Since no single oil is effective at fighting all the different viruses out there, blending some of the antiviral oils together creates a type of broad spectrum recipe. All right, so that's kind of important, and that's what we want to. We're going to focus on this particular oil and this oil's constituents, because I believe that doTERRA, when they created On Guard, they knew what they were doing. They didn't just dump a bunch of oils together in a blend and, oh, this smells good, and let's just go ahead and sell it. No, there's reasons that they put these oils together. Okay, so again, remember, essential oils are one of the only things that can penetrate into a cell without using receptors. In other words, an essential oil can just freely come and go. It doesn't need an invitation. It's kind of like your kids. coming into your house, right? They freely come and go, right? They don't need a knock, knock, who's there, right? Many agents, and pharmaceuticals, they need that knock, knock, right? But essential oils can penetrate into our cell to kill the cell intracellularly. But not only can they do it that way, essential oils can prohibit that virus from even entering the cell. And that's where those receptors are going to come into play that, that we were talking. We'll talk about receptors in just a little bit. All right, so doTERRA On Guard. It's an essential oil blend that includes oils from wild orange, clove, cinnamon bark, eucalyptus, and rosemary. It can be used to protect against environmental threats to support healthy immune function. So when we talk about viruses, when we talk about bacteria, but in particular, we're talking about viruses, we must talk about our immune system, because that's what our immune system is all about. It's about keeping these agents from infecting us, okay? And it happens all the time. All right, so eucalyptus, I kind of wanted to start with eucalyptus because the more that I researched eucalyptus, the more I was like, wow, this is actually pretty awesome, right? When I saw this one particular slide here, the primary benefits is, clear breathing, respiratory health, it's good for muscles, purifying and cleansing properties. But the more that I researched this particular oil, now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I want everybody to see and understand. This is coming from a scientific paper of the antiviral activities of eucalyptus essential oil and their effectiveness as therapeutic targets against human viruses. Now, one of the things that I want you to look at is right here where I'm circling, okay, where it says herpes virus, that's this thing right here. Here is the cell. Everything down here with the yellow tint, this is all intracellular. Here is the cell membrane, okay? Now, as you can see, there are these projections coming from the cell membrane. These are receptors. What the virus does is they nicely fit into only certain receptors, okay? Not just any receptor. Okay, certain receptors, as you can tell, these are color coded. Basically, what that means is that these are different receptors. They've got different shapes. They'll only allow a receptor of that same type to fit in there. And eucalyptus to the rescue. What this does is it literally will block these receptors. Now, what does it do to block receptors? Well, oftentimes blocking receptors just means that you're occupying that receptor space so nothing else can fit into it, okay? Let's look at that like with our house, okay? If I wanted to block a key from coming in there, I can shove something in there that would block that key from fitting in there so nothing's coming into the house, right? Not even me if I'm on the other side, right? Even if I have the right key, nothing is going to open that lock because there's something shoved in there that's blocked. It's exactly the way that these work. That's how receptors work, okay? It's exactly how pain medications, when you take, maybe you're taking Tylenol for a headache. What that Tylenol does is that acetaminophen, which is a chemical compound, it has chemicals that will go into in the nervous system and it will block that pain impulse so you can't feel it. Does that mean that it's not there? It's still there, you just can't feel it. Okay, so if you can't feel pain, is it really there? Good question, right? Okay, so if you can't feel the effects of a virus, is it really there? Another good question, right? Yes, it is still there. It's just that we blocking the receptors, okay? So the main molecular mechanisms involved in the antiviral activity are direct inactivation, that is, by the direct binding of monoterpenes, that's what's found in eucalyptus oil, with free viruses, particularly with viral proteins, those are the receptors involved in the entry and penetration of the host cell, thus avoiding viral infection. Isn't that pretty amazing? Now, I hope that I didn't make that too scientific. I wanted to really just break this down to where we all can understand, as long as we keep those viruses out of our cells, we are good, right? as long as we keep the doors locked. And that's where essential oils come in. They're keeping those doors locked. No entry, right? So again, antiviral activities of eucalyptus. You see it here with the SARS-CoV-2. You also see it with herpes, and you see it just with basic influenza. Okay. All righty. How about clove? Clove was actually a wonderful, amazing oil. Look at all of these properties: antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, disinfectant, diuretic, antiviral, antiparasitic, anti-tumor, antioxidant, antimicrobial, and an immune stimulant. I just thought, wow. I mean, this oil should be an oil that is front and center in our lives, right? So if we are not consuming clove essential oil on a daily basis, we need to figure out a way to get it into our bodies. Okay, lifelong vitality is one of those ways. I'm just saying. So the health benefits for dental health: combats infections, reduces headaches, improves digestion, remedy for ear pain, stronger immunity, keeps cold and cough away, healthy for the skin, healthy for the hair, and reduces acne. Now, while I say that it's healthy for the skin, that does not mean you're just going to take clove oil and put it on your skin, okay? You will be sorry if you do that, okay? You heavily will dilute clove oil. Okay? It's a hot oil. All right, wild orange. Again, this was another one that I was kind of like, huh, okay, that's interesting. I would have never thought, you know, wild orange. I mean, I know that it's on guard, but what's the big deal with wild orange? Well, powerful cleanser, purifying agent, protects against seasonal and environmental threats. So it's good for our immune system. High in antioxidants, which are essential to overall health, uplifting of the mind and body. So it's not to mention that it's got a absolutely beautiful aroma, but it has a variety of uses, from aiding the GI tract to energizing the mind and body. Part of its appeal is thanks to its chemical makeup. It has a high amount of monoterpenes. Now, I don't know if you remember, we were just talking about monoterpenes when we were talking about eucalyptus and the blocking of that receptor, okay? So the high amount of monoterpenes gives the oil purifying and stimulating qualities that can help enhance immunity. The orange rind is also full of antioxidants that help maintain overall health. So I thought it was pretty interesting, actually. I've got a whole new respect for some of these oils. And then, of course, we've got rosemary, which is also a part of the doTERRA On Guard blend. Now, separate and apart from the fact that rosemary is, it smells very good. It literally wakes you up when you smell rosemary. Its primary uses: arthritis, bronchitis, immune system, colitis, detoxification, fatigue, flu, kidney infection, lice, mental clarity, oily hair, palpitations, respiratory infections, sinusitis, and sour stomach. Basically from head to toe. Basically from head to toe. Okay, this is a pretty amazing little oil, that's for sure. Okay, not to mention the fact that the name is just so cute, rosemary. Who would want to name their kid Rosemary, right? Rosemary. I think it's just a beautiful name. All right, cinnamon. This is one of the oils that I just never really gravitated to. But there are plenty of reasons why we should keep this in our essential oil box, okay? Whether we're using it in an oil blend or we are just using it all by itself. Aside from the fact that it does smell very good when you're diffusing, you don't have to use very much of this. I mean, a drop or two in the diffuser is all you need to add other oil with it to make a very, very lovely and wonderful smell in your home. But look at the benefits of cinnamon. It's taken from tree bark, blood sugar. Now, this is really, really big for anybody with diabetes. Okay, this is definitely, you know, a key word is blood sugar, right? But look at what else. cold and flu, cholesterol and heart issues, oral health, germs and bacteria, muscle strain and pain. And then of course we know it's good for cooking, right? Pretty interesting though. It's pretty interesting the amount of benefits that this one little oil can give us. All right, now I know that this got a lot of words, but the only words that I want you to pay attention to are those that I have highlighted, okay? The top antiviral essential oils. Look at all of the wording here. Antiviral, fights viruses, kill off viruses, powerful antiviral. So we have tea tree. We have one that we do, and that's one we haven't talked about yet. We haven't talked about lavender. We haven't talked about thyme. We haven't talked about peppermint or oregano. We have talked about cinnamon, eucalyptus, and clove, but we do have a couple more. So let's talk just a bit about thyme, okay? Not to mention the fact that I just always like saying thyme because I didn't learn how to even say this word properly until I was a full-blown adult. I always said thyme. And then people, you know, it's thyme. Oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. So now I like saying thyme. But look at it, kills infections, increases circulation, which is very, very important for our immune system, and balances hormones. Anybody got hormone issues out there? Might want to look into this. What about oregano? Oregano is, you know, definitely it's underrated. A lot of times people, they're turned off by oregano because of the smell. But if you can get this little oil into your body, the benefits are very great. And that's where those veggie caps come in. If you've got those veggie caps, if you don't, they're like next to nothing. You can get like, I think it's like 80 veggie caps. There's a big bottle of them for like what, $4 or $5, something like that. They're very cheap. Just go ahead and get yourself some. And that way you can take some of these oils that are hot or that don't taste the best, and you can get them into your body so that they can do some of their wonderful work. But look at oregano: antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic, antiparasitic, antibiotic. I mean, this oil can do so many things inside of our body. Pneumonia, candida, which is yeast, staph infection, Ebola virus, parasites, athlete's foot, fungal infections, warts, moles, whooping cough, MRSA, intestinal parasites, canker sores, cold, flu, strep, sore throat, sinus infection, yeast infection. Oh my goodness. I mean, is there anything that it doesn't kill? Is there anything that it doesn't do? Very, very good oil to have in your medicine cabinet. All right, we talked about tea tree. Melaleuca and tea tree are the same. Okay, so oftentimes you'll see Melaleuca and then you'll see tea tree. doTERRA's changed the name to tea tree, and there are some other little things that, you know, that we do have to know about it, but I'm not going to talk about that right here. I just want everybody to know this is, or these are the primary uses of Melaleuca. Very good for skin, very good for acne, allergies, athlete's foot, bacterial infections, bronchitis, candida, coughs, dermatitis, eczema, earache, hives, lice, I should say, nail infections, pink eye, which can be viral or bacteria, and then tonsillitis. Very useful for killing topical and airborne bacteria and viruses. In other words, you can diffuse this essential oil and it kills the viruses that are circulating in the air. Pretty amazing. Peppermint, again, in test tubes, peppermint essential oil kills many types of fungi, bacteria, and viruses. So another one of those oils that we would never have thought that it had antiviral properties. Well, it does. What about lemon? Now we know that lemon is very good for, you know, we can use it to, you know, to clean. It has antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral properties, but look at what else lemon is for. I use lemon often. It's good for bites, stings, blood pressure, common colds, concentration, constipation, depression, digestion, dry throat, kidney stones, lymphatic cleansing, physical energy, stress, and varicose veins. Wow. I mean, this is probably one of the cheapest oils that we've got, right? And look at all that it does. Pretty amazing. And then there's lavender. Excuse this slide, it's not the best quality, but just understand that lavender essential oil is an authoritative antibacterial oil, which can boost your immune system and resist diseases and viruses. So basically, we should just take a shower with all these essential oils, right? We should pour them all in a glass and just drink them, right? No, don't do that. 1 or 2 drops is all you need. And make sure you know that that essential oil is for internal use. Most of them are. All right, so again, spices and herbs, look at what they have been found to do, found to kill, found to resist, found to inhibit. Clove, ginger, garlic, black pepper, turmeric, cinnamon, basil, giloy and neem, which giloy and neem, I've heard of neem, but I don't know anything about giloy. But anyway, I just thought it was very, very interesting. You know, just going into this topic of viruses. You know, it's really the buzzword, and people know a lot more about viruses now than they really ever have. You know, so we can wear our masks, we can get our vaccines, we can do all of those things, but using essential oils is another layer of protection that viruses are going to invade our body. I don't care if you have an armored plate around you, right? The viruses are going to enter, and viruses are going to try to infect cells. And so what we want to do is we want to go to the cellular level to try to avoid these viruses from getting into our cells, and then even after they've gotten into our cells. We want to lessen the damage that they do to our body. And that's where essential oils, they are doing so many and have done so many scientific studies. And that's where some of this information came from different, you know, science papers and studies and things like that. I know I'm not the best at citing my work, and maybe that's something that somebody could teach me how to do. Maybe Michelle. Because you know, even when I was in college, I was very bad at citing work. That was one of the things my teacher was always trying to get me to do better. I just, you know, I don't know, for some reason, I just have a hard time with it. But anyway, nonetheless, we're talking about viruses, we're talking about essential oils, we're talking about just staying healthy. And that's where essential oils can definitely be a very, very important tool in that fight 24/7, 365 against viruses in our bodies. So anyway, I am going to stop. Let's go ahead and stop the sharing. And I'm also going to